Let's open the class bindings1.html. Here we have a box in cyan color. If we inspect element, it has bootstrap class bginfo. What we'll do here is change the class to bgprimary when user mouse over to the box. Otherwise, if the user mouse out from the box, the background color will turn back to bginfo. Okay, let's do that. Let's switch back over to our editor, then open the classbindings1.html file. In the box, there are two classes, row and bginfo. Here, we can leave the row class. On the contrary, let's cut the bginfo class. Then, let's add vbind:class equals. Then here, we'll pass an object as an argument. But before that, we should remember we'll need two different classes here. One class will be applied when mouse over, and another class when mouse out. So before we define that class, we can firstly define in the data property a property to hold the state whether the user is hovering mouse or not. Let's say hovered, and it should be false by default. Then we can change its value on mouse over and on mouse out. Then we can change its value on mouse over event and on mouse out. So here, we just replace the hovered's value to true. And on mouse out, we change the hovered's value back to false. Now we can define the classes in the object argument. The first one is bginfo. This class will be applied when hovered property is false. Then the bgprimary will be applied when hovered is true. Now let's have a look. Actually, let me clean this up. Save. As you can see, now the background color has turned to blue, or applied bgprimary class in this case. But unfortunately, when mouse out, the color doesn't change. Let me see. Sorry, I made a typo. It should be hovered. So it should be matches with the property that we define here. Save. Now here the class still bginfo, and if I now hover over the box, the background color turns to bgprimary. If I mouse out the box, it's now back to bginfo. Next, let's open the classbindings2.html. Here we have the exact same app. We'll change the background color to bgprimary when we mouse over the box, and change back the background color to bginfo when mouse out the box. But the difference here, we will define the class in array. So let's copy everything, then paste it in the classbindings2.html. Because all we need to do here is changing the class binding. So as I mentioned before, to apply classes in array, we just define the class name as array element. But here we need to check the state of the hovered property to determine a single class. If it was true, then the class will be bginfo, otherwise bgprimary. So let's change this as array opening and closing. Then inside it, we can check if hovered is true, then the class will be bgprimary, otherwise the class will be bginfo. I don't think we need to change other part, so let's save that. Now if we try to hover over the box, the background color changes. If we mouse out the box, the background color back to original color. So the result here is exactly the same, but the difference here will define the classes in array. Alright, now let's try to define a single class in a string. Let's open class bindings3.html. Here we have an alert primary. If we select the class here, then the alert style should be changed. For example, if we choose secondary option, then the alert here will turn to alert secondary, and so on. Let's switch back over to our editor. Here we have alert primary. So the class that we need to make dynamic is alert primary. It depends on what we choose in select option. Let's cut. Then add here bind class. Here, because we only need to apply a single class, we can pass it as a string. Now, since we need to take the value from select option, then apply it here. So before that, let's firstly define it in the data property. For example, alert type, and give it a default value as alert primary. Now we can pass into our class binding the alert type. Let's save. Then back to our browser. Okay, so far so good. The last thing that we need to do here is to make use input binding from the select element to the alert type. Here we can simply use vmodel, then alert type. Save. Let's have a look. I'll choose the secondary option. The alert turns to secondary. Now I'll choose other option. Success. Danger. Warning. Okay, that's about class binding.